There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes not from crying itself, but from the energy spent trying not to. The tight jaw in a meeting when something lands harder than it should. The deliberate blink when a song comes on that you weren't prepared for. The practiced stillness you've trained yourself to hold in rooms where falling apart, even slightly, would cost you something. You have become very good at the performance of composure. And still, sometimes it breaks through anyway, at the wrong moment, in front of the wrong person, over something that, by any external measure, probably didn't warrant it. And in that moment, before the tear has even dried, something else arrives. Not the emotion itself. You've made a kind of peace with those. What arrives is the interpretation, the familiar automatic voice that says, "This is too much. You are too much. Other people don't do this." If you have heard that voice in someone else's words or in your own, this is for you, because the story you were told about what your tears mean is almost certainly wrong. Not partially wrong, structurally wrong. Built on an assumption about emotional expression that psychology has been quietly dismantling for decades, and that neuroscience has now given us the tools to understand properly. What looks like weakness from the outside is, in most cases, evidence of a nervous system that is doing something the average nervous system cannot. Let's start with what's actually happening in the brain. When you cry in response to something, a conversation, a piece of music, a moment of unexpected kindness, your nervous system is not malfunctioning. It is completing a circuit. Specifically, what researchers have identified is that people who cry more readily tend to have a higher degree of what's called emotional granularity, combined with lower suppression thresholds. This means two things are true simultaneously. They perceive emotional information with more resolution than the average person, and they have less of the neurological machinery dedicated to blocking that information before it reaches expression. This is not a deficit. This is a different architecture. The suppression machinery, the system that keeps most people dry-eyed through experiences that would otherwise produce tears, requires significant cognitive resources to operate. It is, in the most literal neurological sense, work. Chronic emotional suppressors show elevated cortisol levels, higher rates of cardiovascular reactivity, and in long-term studies, greater incidence of anxiety disorders than people who express emotions more freely. The body keeps what the face refuses to show. You, by contrast, are running a more efficient system. The emotional signal arrives, it is processed, and it is released. The circuit closes. The nervous system returns to baseline faster than it does in people who intercept the signal mid-route and reroute it somewhere it cannot be seen. What looks like instability is physiologically closer to regulation. Now, here is where it becomes more specific, because not everyone who cries easily does so for the same reason, and the distinction matters. Think about the environment where you grew up. Not the dramatic version of it, not the version you would tell a therapist in the first session, the ordinary version, the texture of it. Was emotion welcomed in that house? Or was there a quieter lesson, never spoken directly, that certain feelings were too much for the room? Many people who cry easily did not grow up in homes that were traumatic.
They grew up in homes that were emotionally unnavigated, where no one was equipped to hold the size of what they felt. What the child learns in that environment is something precise. My emotional life is larger than the container available for it. Both adaptations that follow are valid. Neither is pathology. What they share is the same original truth. You were someone who felt deeply in a world that wasn't always large enough for it.
Here is the part that tends to surprise people. People who cry more easily score significantly higher in affective empathy, the ability to actually feel what another person is feeling. Your nervous system is more permeable than most. It takes in more. It processes more. And that same permeability is what produces the tears. The cost and the gift are the same nerve. But without boundaries, that sensitivity becomes overwhelming. And this is where awareness matters. Because this is not weakness. It never was. The person who feels deeply, expresses it, and returns to balance is demonstrating something rare. The ability to be in contact with reality without being destroyed by it. That is resilience. You were never too much. You were just in the wrong rooms.